A crusade to remove the criminal status on petty offences is underway in Accra. The president says a echo to students who excelled in 2020 BECE. National Asean Center to monitor and provide real-time data on gold exports launched at the Kotoka International Airport. National Media Commission constitutes governing boards of public corporations managing the state-owned media. And EU denies reports of discrimination against Africans at Ukraine's border. This is our Heritage Month, a month which we proudly display our Ghanaian culture. Good evening and welcome to GBC News and GTV. My name is Clara Mlano. My name is Ruhaja Rahama Mahmoud Jawando. To the details now.
Plan of action on accelerating prison and penal reform in Africa. The plan of action was to encourage African countries to decriminalize petty offences in their respective countries to address overcrowding in prisons. Only a few African countries, including Nigeria, Uganda and Malawi, have taken steps to implement the plan of action. In Ghana, common nuisance, idle and disorderly behavior, loitering and offences against public morals are classified as petty offences and are criminalized in the Criminal Offences Act 30, 1960. And there are calls for its abolishment because experts say the laws on petty offences are vague, arbitrary and highly dependent on police discretion for arrest and therefore encourage police corruption and unlawful detention. At a forum in Accra, a former commissioner of Shraj, Justice Emil Short, said the courts must be empowered to impose non-custodial sentences rather than sentencing people to serve jail terms for petty offences.
You must first decide what you consider to be petty offences in our criminal code, which disproportionately affect the poor and vulnerable. You must then consider whether decriminalization of those offenses will alleviate the serious issue of congestion in our prisons.
The Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Mr. Alfred Tuayebua, recommended careful steps in dealing with a review of the law on petty offences.
It is important to emphasize that while efforts are made to reassess the impact of this minor offense on vulnerable persons, this is not to suggest that public safety should be sacrificed and public order dismantled. The definition of crime is a subject in which most members of society are invested. It is a means by which public safety and protection of property is safeguarded.
The forum has a theme: decriminalizing petty offences, the state, the offender, the society.
And Jonathan Intim Dalcon will interpret the news into sign language. Students who excelled during the 2020 Basic Education Certificate Examination BECE have received an Ayeko applause from President Akufo-Addo at the President's Independence Day Award ceremony held in Accra. And to the President, transforming Ghana largely hinges on transforming her human resources and therefore the determination of his government to continue to invest in education.
They have a dream and have kept their faces towards the sunshine. For these students who put up a sterling performance during the 2020 BECE, nothing is impossible. The threats posed by COVID-19 did not deter them on the education path, but were determined to go that extra mile to have their names written in gold on the list for the President's Independence Day Awards. The Minister for Education, Dr. Yawaduchum, commended teachers and parents of these students for their yeoman's job. He was also grateful to Nestle for sponsoring the awards for the past 30 years.
The President's Independence Day Awards recognize and rewards academic excellence and inclusive education by recognizing students, including students with additional educational needs. Recipients of today's President Independence Day Award are the 2020 overall Best Male and Female students from public schools in the 18 regions, who were selected based on their raw scores obtained from the West African Examinations Council's DEC.
President Akufo-Addo advised award winners not to be conceited by this feat, but rather see it as the beginning of greater things.
Government believes strongly educate the knowledge and talent are not for the rich and privileged alone. That free secondary education widens the gates of opportunities to every child, especially the development of those whose talents are arrested because of poverty. I urge you not to allow your current successes to get you ahead, because this is only the beginning. Continue to work hard in order to maintain your standards. Know that you can go as far as you want by remaining diligent, hardworking, and holding on to a strong moral compass. Honesty and integrity are important values in any worthwhile existence.
He also announced that from this year, students in government TVET institutions will benefit from the free SHS package.
Government tends to continue to deepen the education of our population so as to attain our industrialization objective. This means there will be increasing emphasis in our educational system on science and technology education and technical and vocational training. In addition to the ongoing construction of the Accra STEM Academy, government has commenced the construction of 20 science, technology, engineering, and mathematics centers across the country, with all 20 at various stages of completion. The completion of 9 model senior high schools across the country is imminent. This year, government will expand the free senior high school program to cover all first-year students in public TVET institutions.
As part of steps taken by government to transform Ghana through science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education, 24 STEM centers are being built across the country. These include the Anwianso STEM Center in the Bebiani Anwianso Bekwai constituency, which is about 80% complete. Edward Nyakun, reporting for GBC News.
Ghana has launched a National Asean Center at the Kotoka International Airport. The National Asean Center will monitor and provide real-time data on gold exports and ensure accountability and transparency. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, said with the center to test the purity of these precious minerals, Ghana will now get the real value from its gold and other mineral exports.
Saying is necessary to make sure that any minted gold meets the required purity standards and content. For players, understanding gold grades and gold purity through accurate gold assaying is key to profitable gold mining, gold refining, and gold bullion products production. Prior to 2018, obtaining real-time data on gold exports in the country was difficult, but according to the Precious Mineral Marketing Company, PMMC, since the introduction of the National Asean, the country has up-to-date data of millions of gold exported. The National Asean is to ensure transparency, accountability, and increase revenue mobilization from the country's natural resources. It gives live detail of the ounces of gold exported, the value, the amount of tax generated from it, and the destination country. The managing director of PMMC, Nana Kwesi Ewa, said the National Asean will help check all gold exports, cut fraud, and promote efficiency.
Since the commencement of the National Assay program, till date, PMMC has been able to assay a total weight of gold of about 18 million ounces at an estimated total value of USD $27 billion. Out of this figure, the ASM sector accounted for about 6.6 million ounces, valued at $9.2 billion, representing about 40%, while the large-scale sector accounted for 11.3 million ounces, valued at $17.9 billion.
The Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. Samuel Jinapo, outlining the digitization processes in the natural resources sector, said the National Gold Refinery is ready.
This refinery is timely as the Bank of Ghana commences the purchase of gold domestically to shore up its reserves and contribute to the retention of the value of our mineral resources. Working with the Ministry of Finance and other stakeholders, we have also initiated the processes of securing a London Bullion Market Association LBMA certification to enable us easily export and trade our refined gold on the international market.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, said the digitalization of the National Asean is to help governments independently to verify all gold earmarked for export and help the country to get the actual value of its natural resources.
Digitalization has now made it possible to generate assay certificates which have unique security features. These unique features will make the certificates difficult to forge by gold scammers to facilitate their dubious schemes. Digitalization has also now made it possible to monitor in real time gold exports passing through the assay laboratory.
Christened digitalization, revenue assurance for enhanced transparency in natural resources value chain, it is believed that the country can now keep track of the exact amount of her gold exports.
Delegates at the major National Labour Conference have called for a review of the single spine pay policy to address inequalities in public sector wages. The two-day conference held at Kwewunkwetia in the Eastern region discussed issues including the state of the economic conditions of service of public sector workers, public sector salaries, productivity, among others. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, who closed the session, said the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic have caused fiscal constraints on the part of government, urging labor unions not to take entrenched positions in their demands. A communique issued dubbed the Kwewu Declaration urged government to immediately eliminate waste in government expenditure, including completing existing projects, and instead enforce sanctions in the Financial Management Act, as well as plug loopholes and subsidize petroleum products and water. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, said government is committed to implementing the communique and would continue to exhibit political will, trust, and engage in social dialogue based on respect of the fundamental rights of workers and employers.
Government is committed to turn around of the economy and will do all it can to restore the economy from the devastating shackles of COVID-19 and other global threats that we are seeing. We remain focused on improving the public sector efficiency, rationalizing public expenditure, enhancing internal revenue mobilization, deepening the country's digital footprint, and supporting the growth of the private sector.
The Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Mr. Ignatius Bafwewa, called on organized labor and employers to work with government for the maintenance of microeconomic stability and build a sustained, resilient economy.
The outcome of the National Labour Conference should bring us to the point where we find a good balance that enables us to meet the demands of labor without compromising microeconomic stability, growth, and social protection. The tripartite constituents, i.e. government, organized labor, and employers, should work together at all times through social dialogue towards peaceful industrial relations as a prerequisite for the maintenance of macroeconomic stability.
Conference brought together representatives of government, organized labor, and members of employers' associations across the country. The National Media Commission, in accordance with Article 168 of the Constitution and Section 21E of the National Media Commission Act 1993, Act 449, and in consultation with the President, appointed the following persons to the following governing boards of public corporations and managing the state-owned media. The statement signed by the Executive Secretary, Mr. George Sapon, announces membership as the following: Graphic Communication Company Limited has Professor Olivia Frimpong-Kwapon as chair, Mrs. Ivy Austin, Dr. Valentin Kwesi-Mensah, Mr. Ebenezer Asante-Sefa, Dr. Amabuafo Arthur, Mr. Ishak Chebrobe, Yaudi Opon, Mr. Atu Afo as MD. And the board for the Ghana News Agency, we have Mr. Ransford Tete as the chairperson. Members are Mrs. Ivy Huetu, Mr. Daniel Adai, Dr. N.A. Ibrahim Latte, Mr. Peter Clever Nibepo Sangbe Dere, Dr. Charles Quenin, Ms. Juliet Amoa, and Mr. Kofi Owusu as the general manager. New Times Corporation has Dr. Kweku Roxon as chair, Professor Kofi Kwashigan, Mrs. Victoria Nachu, Mr. Donald Bira, Professor Kwesi Opoku Amankwa, Mr. Kofi Mara, Mr. Samuel Akwesi S. Safo, Ms. Doris Adabasu Kuonu, and Mr. Edu Owusu as Managing Director. For the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, we have Professor Samuel Deborah as the chairman, Mrs. Efagate, Dr. Kwame Nyamiche, Mrs. Amasewa Nekwe, Mr. Peter Yakwe, Mr. Thomas Bruni, Mr. Ejay Efriye Nketia. The others are Mr. Samuel Kojo Intiaba, Dr. Tano Deborah, Professor Amin Al-Hassan as the Director General. The Supreme Court has struck out an application which sought to quash a High Court decision on Fix the Country convener, Mr. Oliver Baka Womano, who is currently in court over the charge of treason felony. The Tema High Court on February 17th refused a habeas corpus application for the Inspector General of Police and the Attorney General to appear before the court to justify the continued detention of Mr. Baka for war.
Back out after lawyers for Mr. Oliver Baker Womawa withdrew same following an unsuccessful attempt to argue out their case before the 5-member panel of judges presided over by Justice Jones Dochi. The court, through Justice Yoni Kulendi, wondered why lawyers for the applicant did not apply for bail for him at the High Court, but decided to file an application at the Supreme Court. According to the court, the main aim of the lawyers was to seek the liberty of the applicant and not to file for applications. Dr. Shrem Sai, lawyer for the applicant, answered that he was following the instructions of the applicant, but the court reminded him that as a lawyer, he was to guide his client. A member of the panel, Justice Tokonu, told the lawyer that this was not to engage in intellectual argument when the liberty of his client was at stake. She asked the lawyer to take steps to secure bail for him. Dr. Sai then withdrew the application and prayed the Apex Court to grant Mr. Oliver Baker bail.
A Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Diana Asunaba Dapa, said the state may not be opposed to bail, but the right procedure should be followed, which was for the application to be put before the High Court. The Supreme Court said although the Constitution granted it power to give any order including bail, it would set a bad precedent if it granted bail. The court then advised counsel to go to the High Court for bail. Lawyers for the social activist filed an application at the Supreme Court on February 23, 2022, seeking an invention of the court to quash the decision of the Tema High Court refusing an application for habeas corpus on Mr. Oliver Baker Vomawo, who has been charged with treason felony. The application also sought an interpretation of Article 14.3 of the 1992 Constitution, which provides that it is wrong for the police to put an accused person before a court which does have jurisdiction to determine matters relating the personal liberty of an accused person.
Let's focus on our special story for the day. In our Heritage series today, we draw attention to Edinkra symbols and their meanings. Edinkra are visual symbols with historical and philosophical significance, originally printed on cloth which royals wore to important ceremonies. The name Edinkra is traced to the word Dinkra of the Akan Chi language of the Akan people of Ghana. Dinkra means to be separated, taking leave, or farewell.
Edinkra are symbols that represent concepts and was then used extensively for fabrics. Mr. Prince Ofedakun, an affiliate of the J.H. Kobnan Ketia Africana Center, who is also the head of social sciences at the African University College of Communications, explains further.
Edinkra symbols are actually non-verbal forms of communication in African societies, particularly among the Akans and then the Asante. Edinkra symbols gained their name and their popularity from the Akan cloth, right, which is called the Edinkra cloth. Now, the Edinkra cloth is normally used for funerals to bid farewell to people. So the word Edinkra itself comes from the Akan word Edinkra or Edinkra, which means goodbye or farewell. So in the past, most of the Asantes and by extension the Akans used to wear this cloth to say goodbye to people they had lost, and then also to sympathize with families who had lost their dear ones.
Originally produced by the German clans of Nahafo, now Ahafo region centuries ago, Edinkra was the exclusive right of royalty and spiritual leaders and only used for important ceremonies such as funerals.
One powerful Akan state that was called the German state, which was located to the northwest of the former Asante state and also in parts of Cote d'Ivoire, was the origin of the Edinkra symbol. We are told that one of their kings by name German Hene Kujo Edingra, which we believe was corrupted to Edinkra, made a replica of the Asante golden stool. And you know that the sacred stool represents the history, the unity, the power and authority of the Asante nation and also the Asante Hene. And so by making a replica of the stool, he was claiming that at the point, he was also more powerful than the Asante state, and he was also indirectly disrespecting the Asante Hene. And so what the Asante Hene did, and at that time the Asante Hene was called Osei Bonsu Penyi. What he did was that he sent an emissary to the German state and told the Edinkra to surrender the replica of the golden stool to him. At the first instance, Edinkra did that. He surrendered the stool to the Asante emissaries. However, as soon as they got to the Asante state, he made a second golden stool. And that angered the Asante Hene. He sent another emissary to him to surrender the second golden stool to him. What he did was that he decided not to surrender the stool and refused to pay the 1,000 ounces of gold. That was the punishment for what he did. And so the Asante declared war on the Germans. The Asantes were able to defeat the Germans. And we are made to believe that some of these prisoners were people who were skilled in the art of making these crafts. Specifically, they were skilled in the art of making impressions in cloth. So we are made to believe that these craftsmen also introduced this art to the Asante craftsmen, for which the Asantes adopted it and developed it over time and named it Edinkra after the former German king Kujo Edingra or Edinkra.
Here are some examples of Edinkra symbols and their meanings.
One of the popular ones is what we call the abedua. Abedua is actually the palm tree. And what the abedua represents is that, look, as human beings, we are not self-sufficient. The abedua is self-sufficient because all other trees will die, but it will survive. But human beings are not self-sufficient like the abedua. We also can talk about the Jinyame symbol, which is so popular among the Edinkra symbols. Now, if you look at the Jinyame symbol, Jinyame simply means except God or only God, right? So as a religious symbol, it tells us that as human beings or as Africans, we can depend on God in times of difficulties or in times of misfortune because God does not die. God is eternal. We also have this popular Edinkra symbol called Uwachidie, which is literally the ladder of death. Now, this symbol indicates to us that death is inevitable, that all human beings will die, irrespective of your socioeconomic background.
These symbols are indigenous, unique, beautiful, and rich with meaning.
You're watching News Hour live on GTV and JVC News. We take a quick break and return with the business, energy, health, and sports news. Just stay.
Good evening, welcome to Business, brought to you by MTN and Quick Credit. In our very first story, the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association says lack of access to financing to cater for green projects, also known as green buildings, is undermining the country's transition to eco-friendly infrastructure. Despite the benefit of green buildings, attracting funding remains a major hurdle to players in the construction industry.
Over here in Ghana, we haven't embraced it fully. There are several contributing factors to that, and especially with residential building development, which is where my people are. The problem has always been with costs. So I remember Energy Commission had a discussion with us some time ago to see how best residential properties can adopt green. And it has always been the issue of cost, because the analysis was that a typical residential building would need additional 10% of the unit cost to get into green, to get the basic green features on the building. And this was a bit of a problem, because if you understand how most of the finances take place in Ghana, especially those who buy houses through mortgages, it was becoming difficult because the unit cost alone was preventing so many people from qualifying from the mortgage products that they had. So additional 10% was pushing a lot of people out of the qualifying criterion. And so it was a disincentive for most people. So what we agreed on at that time was that we will separate the green application from the actual cost of the building, so that banks can find some funding for people who want, so that become like optional. You buy the unit without the green, but then they make a arrangement for you to add on the green features, and so if you can afford it. And so that's what we agreed on. But we're also looking at incentives at that time to bring on board to make it attractive for a lot of people. For Ghana, it is cost. But if you look at the technology, it has a long-term benefit, which people must appreciate.
And Ghana has the capacity to create over 100,000 new jobs through waste recycling by 2025. That's according to Director of International Engagement at the Recirculate project, Professor Kek Semple. He has been speaking at the 2022 Recirculate Ghana conference in Accra.
The Recirculate Ghana project is a £7 million research initiative spearheaded by the UK's government's Global Challenges Research Fund. The project, which has run concurrently for over 4 years, is aimed at exploring innovative ways of developing a safe, circular water economy to solve water challenges. The challenges, which have been classified in 3 categories, include sanitation, human health and water, energy and water, and food security, agriculture, productivity and water.
What we've done with Recirculate is that we have used Recirculate to build capacity, particularly for me, among female academics in Africa. And the Stimulating Entrepreneurial Thinking in Scientists program has been really beneficial.
The Director of International Engagement at the Recirculate Ghana project, Professor Kek Semple, says the projection will be feasible if only waste and water recycling are considered as business and entrepreneurial venture.
But there are also issues around business development and entrepreneurial thinking. And that's been really important, but also in terms of how the project survives beyond the period of funding. So by introducing business and entrepreneurial thinking, we can continue to do the good work.
The World Economic Forum estimates that the global economy could gain $1 trillion by 2025 if the world transitions into a circular economy.
And Ghana is set to play an active role on the global carbon trading market from June this year. The move, which was announced by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. Samuel Abujinapo, aims at limiting climate change by creating a market with limited allowances for emissions.
We intend also to pilot the concept of carbon trading with corporate Ghana with the 2022 edition of Green Ghana. All of us from all walks of life must come together and help build a green Ghana. The support we are receiving since the tragic incident at Apieti in the Western region is sufficient proof, if any were needed, that we can pool resources together to build the green Ghana we want by ourselves.
We go to the interbank Forex market where the dollar is trading at 6 cedis 70 pesos. The pound sterling is going for 8 cedis 96 pesos and the euro at 7 cedis 46 pesos. We also bring you updates of some major commodities on the international market by way of prices. That was business brought to you by Quick Credits and MTN. The energy news is after this break. You stay with us.
Ago mambi mimbanya de umanye kemba energy shiemoneno achomi na doko anang. A Deputy Minister for Energy, Mr. Andre Japamesa, says government is working with National Petroleum Authority (NPA) to put in measures to cushion petroleum consumers against hikes in fuel prices. He said the ministry and the cabinet will have to approve the proposed measures before implementation. Speaking in Accra, Mr. Mesa said the current increase in fuel prices warrants the suspension of the deregulation policy for government to introduce measures to alleviate the plight of petroleum consumers and the general public.
Past, we practiced some subsidy regime, which was to the effect that government had a direct role in setting the prices at the pumps. Now, when we went through the price deregulation, of course, that itself, that regime, led to huge debt accumulation, which then necessitated the passage of the Energy Sector Levies Act, okay, to ensure that some of that debt was paid. Subsequently, a decision was taken in 2015 to do a full deregulation, which is to say that the cost that we pay at the pumps ought to reflect the commodity price and all the margins and taxes that the commodity actually costs. And so that's what we've been practicing over the past.
The Ministry of Energy has engaged stakeholders in Ho, the Volta region, and on the National Energy Transition Plan. The meeting was to solicit inputs on the best way to shift from the use of fossil fuels to renewable energy sources.
Ghana contributes about 0.12% of the global carbon emissions. To curb this, the Ministry of Energy intends increasing the country's renewable energy in the national generation mix towards net zero carbon emissions. At a National Energy Transition Plan forum in Ho, Deputy Energy Minister Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam explained that government is progressively developing and utilizing cleaner energy resources.
When we just have discovered these resources, we are being asked to stop. So when they have moved from coal to oil and gas to renewable, and we are now going to start with oil and gas, how do you jump to renewable energy? And so let's respond to what the world is asking us to do. But at the same time, let's take into consideration our peculiar circumstances so that we strike the balance.
The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Lecha, was optimistic that implementing the National Energy Transition Plan would benefit the country.
Government is committed to ensuring we are not taking aback or lag behind in the rapid transition that is occurring in the energy sector of the world. In this regard, our efforts at any transition in the energy sector must be national in nature, where the views and inputs of citizens who would be affected by the transition are taken and considered, as well as factored into any plan that government shall formulate.
But the president of the Volta Regional House of Chiefs, Togbe Taprehodo, cautioned government not to hastily implement the energy transition plan at the detriment of the country's economic growth and welfare of Ghanaians.
Our policies, plans, and actions must necessarily take account of the welfare of the people. That for us is the paramount consideration in all of these endeavors. We therefore hope and expect that the discussions and eventually the plans of action that will be arrived at would put the people of Ghana as the top priority.
Wake energy share more ebanagbi. Achomi mebe na adoko anang cha no umanyi ablao.
Time now for the health segment brought to you by Lufat. The sod has been cut to begin construction of a neonatal intensive care unit for the University of Ghana Hospital. This is a project to be undertaken by the Rotary Club of Accra, Legon East, to help save lives of newborn babies and their mothers.
Newborn babies who need intensive medical care are often put in a special area of the hospital, which has advanced technology and trained healthcare professionals to give special care for the tiniest patients. Currently, the University of Ghana Hospital is unable to accommodate the number of babies born early that have health problems or have had a difficult birth. So the construction of the new neonatal intensive care unit for the University of Ghana Hospital comes as a relief. It means more mothers may stay longer to be monitored after a child's birth before they are discharged. The Rotary Club of Accra Legon East has therefore cut the saw to begin construction of a new neonatal intensive care unit for the University of Ghana Hospital. On completion, the club will again equip it with the needed equipment and facilities to function effectively. The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Nanaba Amfo, thanked the Rotary Club of Accra Legon East for their continued support towards the university community and its environs.
As Vice-Chancellor, one of my key strategic objectives is to strengthen traditional revenue streams and expand alternative income sources to meet the university's needs. It is for this reason that I am glad to have the Rotary Club of Accra Legon East take on this project of constructing and equipping a neonatal intensive care unit for the hospital.
The president of the Rotary Club of Accra Legon East, Rotarian Nanaya Ifriyo Furi Korea, said the gesture is in line with the Rotary's key areas of focus.
The theme for Rotary this year is Serve to Change Lives. We are absolutely convinced that sustained and effective healthcare is crucial to the transformation of economies, especially a developing one like ours. And I am especially encouraged that the Rotary Club of Accra Legon East is committed to make this happen.
The project is estimated at 233,000 Ghana cedis.
Wake wa health news so banyagbe Lufat Gino Nifia wasi ne wake wa manibom no bahanye. The international news is next.